ambient folk song project. So you'll record this, and by the way, this is a 2-week project. So you'll have a week to record your audio, background audio. So by next week, you want to bring in your audio sample, about 3 to 4 minutes to give you enough to work with, and we'll put that in Finale next class. So this is kind of a building project over 2 weeks. Tonight, I'm going to show you how to build out 4 Finale tracks that we're going to enter with a tool called Hyperscribe. This is where you can literally play into Finale using your keyboard, using your MIDI keyboard. So we'll start with a melody, and you can pick any instrument. I'm going to show you the whole instrument palette. I got IT to actually get the correct player in here last week, which was a huge endeavor. Came in and installed all of the Aria player with Garriton Instruments is what it's called. And you're going to use this Hushabye song as your basis. So we have just a simple melody and chords. You'll be entering one melody. You'll be entering sound effects from the sound bank. So we'll show you that. A harmony part and a bass part. So basically giving you an idea of how to enter stuff to create your own composition. So to start off with, you'll just do your first one as a blank. Basically, we're going to be working with blanks because it's a little bit easier. So setup wizard, click next, click blank staff. Next, I'm just going to call this project 3 practice because I'm just going to show you a few things. I suggest in this one to stick with 4/4 and E minor. So you can change this to minor. There's this little selector. We're going to go to E minor. You can change this later. As you'll see, this project's very flexible. You can do different stuff, but just start with that for now. That's just give you a good kind of container to work with. So I have a blank staff here, and we're going to work with 2 different windows. Windows Score Manager, which we've seen before, some of our other things. This tells us some important information about the instrument, the name, the device. You want to make sure Garriton Instruments for Finale is selected. And the sound they have in here is Steinway piano, which is the default, right? Because they just give you a sound in case you wanted to play in, there's something there. So, and these last few columns, program, bank, and channel, the most important one is channel, because this works kind of like how early patches for synthesizers, you had to coordinate the channel with the patch and all this stuff, and it's kind of similar here. This score manager thing is linked to something called Aria player. And let me put this, like, see if I can get this a little smaller down here so I can still see the directions. So Aria player, we're going to test out some sounds in what's called Aria player. So you go to MIDI audio, audio units, bank, and effects. And you'll see the instrument list here is Aria player. This is what you want selected. This is where the good sampled sounds are. If you click on this little pencil right next to Aria player, it'll open up basically your whole studio of your soundboard, basically. And these numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, correlate to the channel of the instrument back here in the score manager. So keep in mind, if you need to fix stuff or coordinate stuff, the channel 1 here coordinates to channel 1 here in your instrument. So this is how you can kind of keep things straight. There's a little white bar that you can highlight if you click under each number. This activates the channel. You can see when I activate 1, it actually sets up my piano. Let me turn that up so folks can hear it. So what you can do here, I'm asking you to pick a melody instrument to work with. So kind of the world is your oyster on this project. So pick a melody instrument. I'm going to go to world just because that seems cool. And I'm going to pick Irish flute. I'm a flutist, but Irish flute's cool. And you'll see this gives you the mapping that the instrument has on the piano. So this will tell you the range. And you can kind of check it out, see what it sounds like. This will be more important when you start using sound effects which don't have a pitch, but they've been assigned to the keyboard. So then you'll want to know, like, oh, if I press the helicopter way up here, it's going to sound like that. Or if I push the helicopter down here, it's going to sound like that, so forth. Notice how I loaded Irish flute into track 1, but it did not load in the score manager yet. Very important. The score manager has hierarchy over the Aria player. So the Aria player is more like a way to test sounds and load them in, that, so forth. So I'm going to go back here to instrument in channel 1, right? And I'm going to coordinate now. I'm going to enter that flute. So worlds, woodwinds. You might have to kind of search for it. They're arranged a little bit differently in the lists between the two. Irish flute. Yay, so I've got my Irish flute in this. And notice how I have a hint. You can keep both these windows open while you move back and forth between them. So leave them both open so you can, coordinate your sounds when you're doing each part. Okay, so I'm going to close these. And now I can, if I go into Speedy, I can just check and just make sure it's working. Yay, my flute's working. That's always good when it works. Great, so I want you in this project, we're going to enter, rather than selecting quarter notes and half notes and all that, we're going to enter with what's called the Hyperscribe. So that's a tool that looks like a piano with a microphone. And we're going to click on it. And that gives us a menu up here for Hyperscribe. And we have to set a few things before we start. Beat source, leave it the same. Record mode, record into one staff, leave that the same for now. Hyperscribe options, we're going to click on that. So there's a thing called quant settings. It stands for quantization. So this basically picks up how sensitive it's going to pick up your rhythms. And I want you to set it, I just tell you right here in the directions, set your smallest note value to 8th note. So we're going to set it on this 8th note, and I'm going to say no tuplets. This will allow Finale to pick up my rhythm more or less. If I set it on something like 64th notes, you'll have these crazy rhythms, right? Because the computer can pick up every tiny little imperfection of humanness. And it's kind of okay, but it's much easier to read if you set the value to lower rhythms, smaller rhythms. So click OK. So that's quantization settings. For the PC folks, I'm pretty sure some versions of PC, you have to go to MIDI audio quantization settings. That'll take you to the same place. So just for the people on Zoom. All right, we're going to click OK. And we're going to set to adjust the tempo. There's a little tiny arrow. This is an important little feature that you should know anyway. You open this up. You can set the tempo to record at. I'm going to turn this down a little slower to 100 beats per minute. It's a little bit easier to record if it's slower. And keep in mind, you can record at a slower tempo and always speed the playback back up if you want to take that back to 120 later. So you can mess with the tempo of this piece too as you go. I also always click leftmost measure so that when it does my playback, it'll always start right where I'm at rather than go back to the beginning every time. It's really annoying. So click leftmost measure. So those two things. All right, so the way it works is you click in the score. I'm not going to do it yet because then as soon as I click, I'm going to be like on call. You'll see. I have to like play this in. It gives you 2 measures for nothing. So 2 measures in 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, go. 2, 3, 4, play. And then you start playing on the keyboard. When you're done, click in the staff again, and it'll stop. So let's see if it works. I'm going to use, so for the melody, I want you to use this Hushabye melody. And hint number 2, hint number 1, you don't have to follow the melody exactly. And actually, if you don't follow the melody exactly, it'll sound maybe cooler. You can do all kinds of stuff with this. So just take the melody as a guide. So I'm going to do that. So here we go. Got my Hyperscribe clicked. Click in the measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ready, go. Something like this. Click in the staff to stop. Don't try to click up here, it won't stop. Great, so it even transcribed my little mistake there. That's cool. You can change that if you want, or you can leave it. You might find that your little blips might create some interesting compositional material for later. Great, so that's how to enter the first part with Hyperscribe. All right, so how to add more staffs. I'll just go ahead and show just quite a few of these, maybe 15 more minutes, and then I'll let you go at this. So to add more staffs, I want you to change the score view, and you do that with Command E or Control E if you're on PC. That changes to what's called scroll view. And then you can go to the staff tool, click on that, and then you can add your staffs by double clicking underneath. So I want you to have at least 4 other parts. So you can just add those staffs right underneath. This will give you blank staffs. Don't try to do it in score view, it won't let you. So you got to be in scroll view. So this elongated view to get it to add staffs like that. All right, so let's add a bass part now. Any instrument in the bass range will work. So string bass, electric bass, tuba are all good. And we can go into Window, Score Manager, and you can see the blank staffs are numbered. And let's just go to the very bottom staff because it's the bass part. And let's enter, we probably don't need to go into Aria Player and test this one because we already know it's going to be a bass instrument. So how about wind ensemble, brass? Let's do that tuba. Load the tuba. Great, and they loaded the tuba into channel 5 in the Aria player, so we double check that. All right, so same deal. We're going to go to the Hyperscribe, and you can basically just try stuff out. You can have like a walking bass line where you have the notes going down. You could have the tuba just sustaining notes. I'm going to try a thing where I have the tuba just kind of moving up and down in a scale. So using the key signature of E natural minor. All right, so here we go. Click in the staff. It's going to give me 2 measures. Something like that. That was fun. Hint, this is an important hint. If you want to change the octave of something, do you see how I have this? In general, I think this MIDI keyboard is a little bit too high. It kind of cuts off early. It's not a full 88 key. So it's a little bit too high for my tuba range. If you go to the selection tool and select whatever measures you want to change. So I'm just going to select these. If you press number 8 with measure selected, it takes them an octave lower. If you push 9, it's an octave higher. This is an awesome shortcut because you don't want to re-enter everything an octave higher, right? So this is a shortcut. Press 8 or 9 to change the octave. So let's just, I'm going to make it 1 octave lower. Probably sound better down there too. Great. So studio view is another view in Finale that you will want to use. If you press Command-Shift-E, it opens up your whole studio. And this project's much more like a studio project where you're looking at different tracks. So these sliders are for volume. And then you have some other options where you can solo the track or mute tracks. I suggest when you get a bunch more tracks in, you may want to hear how things sound just like with the melody and the bass, for example. You may have wanted to solo the Irish flute while you entered the tuba, so you can hear one part at a time. Or my impression was that the flute was a little too loud and the tuba can go up. So let me just check that volume. Whoa! You can actually turn these down while it's playing. Okay, that Irish flute's got to go down and still a little more. One more time. That's a little better. Great. All right, why don't we, before I show you the harmony part, let's work just with that for now. All right, so when you want to enter a chordal instruments typically have two staves, right? That's how a keyboard works. So first thing we're going to do is in the score manager, we're going to assign a keyboard instrument, and that'll actually change the way the staff looks. So I'm just going to go to this staff 2, blank staff, go to keyboards. And if you open up different stuff, like if I click jazz and then keyboards, it gives me different options than if I click antique keyboards. So if you want a virginal and a clavichord, those are like predecessors to the piano. I'm going to do jazz keyboard. Let's do the clavinet kind of, that's what Stevie Wonder played on Superstition, has a very unique sound. So clavinet. And you'll see in the score now, it gave me a treble and a bass. It gave me a grand staff for the clavinet. You can see I'm in studio view. It says clavy. I have 2 staves now in my score. So to enter with Hyperscribe, we have to change the record mode. So go to the Hyperscribe tool, Hyperscribe record mode split into 2 staves. And we have to create what's called a split point. So it means basically anything on this side of the note is going to be in the bass clef, and anything on the other side is going to be in treble. And they use a MIDI programming language here. There's actually MIDI notes assigned to every, MIDI numbers assigned to every note on the piano, and 60 is middle C. That's the one, like if you're going to remember one MIDI program note, just remember 60 is middle C. And that's pretty typical, right? Middle C is sort of the dividing point between bass clef and treble clef. So, and they preset it. You can create your own if you want, go wild, but just do it at 60 is the easiest. 60 is middle C, click OK. And now everything below middle C will appear. So C4 is middle C. And everything below that will appear in the bass clef. Everything above that will be in treble. Let's see how my options are if I still have good quantization settings. Maybe for this one, I'll do 16th notes just to see what happens, because you can do kind of some different stuff with this. So click OK and click OK. So let's try this out. So it's going to give me 2 bars for nothing. And I'm going to roughly follow the chords, the chord symbols here. Don't worry how it looks. It's not going to look good. Okay, let's go with that so far. Gave me something that looks kind of like that. And you can always check your playback. And, you know, if those bother you, you can go in, oops, don't do that. You can go in speedy and you can actually, you know, edit your rhythms if you want, right? You don't have to go with what you put in Hyperscribe just because it's what you put. But the idea is that this allows you sort of a different thing than you might do if you were writing it with the rhythms. Great, so it split my staff, yay. All right, let's look at how to enter sound effects. So you have to have at least one sound effect in this. And so the sound effects are kind of interesting, cool, that will go with your ambient audio track that you're gonna put in. So I suggest you check out, so we're gonna go Score Manager and decide what track you wanna put it in. I'm probably just gonna use this staff 3, this blank staff to put my sound effects in. I'm gonna go check some out in the Aria player. So let's just test some out. Here's this, I'm gonna engage the track with that little white bar under the number. And sound effects are under GM, which stands for General MIDI, and sound effects. And you can actually use any of these. You can use synth, synth lead, or synth pad. These are basically all kind of electronically generated effects that aren't like notes or instruments. They're just simply effects. So let's talk about the helicopter. Let's check out the helicopter. Okay, very nice helicopter. And notice the lower ones, it's a little slower. If I play way up high, it's like a very high pitch, very fast one. So there's a logic. All right, so let's plan on loading helicopter into channel 3 or staff 3, which is also channel 3. The difference in loading the sound effect is you got to go to sound because it's not an instrument. So you want to leave, don't load an instrument here. You're going to load it under sound. And then you go down to sound effects, and they actually have the whole bank here. I'm going to look for, there's that helicopter. And I do want you to label it though, so I know in your staff that it's helicopter. So you're going to go down here under full name and label it helicopter so that I know that that's what you chose. And now in the score, it'll still say blank staff, but the name, when we go into the score, says helicopter. So I know, okay, they got a helicopter going. Remember, Control E changes your view, or Command E if you're on PC or Mac. Command Shift E is studio view. You can check out those shortcuts in the directions. And then for the helicopter, same thing. This is where you can kind of have fun with it because it doesn't really matter. 2 measures for nothing. And my helicopter is too quiet. So I'm going to try it again. Oh, and I see what's happening. The record mode should be only 1 staff. So it just recorded all that. Command Z is undo, undo, undo. You don't want any of that. Make sure you go back to record in 1 staff. That's why it was doing that funny stuff. Okay. Let's try again one more time. Helicopter. Anybody hear a helicopter? I do not hear a helicopter. Helicopter, channel 3. Am I in the right channel? Yes. Oh, no, I'm not. This is the helicopter, yes? Oh, I'm in the wrong staff. Sorry, guys. Okay. I'm going to try again and see if I can do it right. Here we go. I was just in the wrong staff. Okay, the helicopter. And again, you can go in, you can edit, change things you want, you can record it again. Maybe helicopter's not the best for the aesthetic that you want. But yeah, that's how you can enter a sound effect. So try those couple of things and we'll go from there.